my fiancée, Willow, never imagined that she was just playing a game of truth or dare at her bachelorette party with her friends. Less than an hour later, I announced the wedding was cancelled, all because her friend Maria sent me a video from the party. In the video, amidst the teasing from her friends, Willow was sitting on a stranger's lap, her shirt's top buttons undone, holding the phone to her ear and giggling coquettishly. She was talking to another man on the phone, and in a high-pitched voice, she said, "I miss you." Maria smugly added the caption, "George, Willow says this is a must-do ritual to bid farewell to single life. I know. She just wants to mess with my head and show me that Willow wasn't someone who couldn't live without me. That Maria's friend was in demand." But little did she know. I flipped the table. I immediately took a screenshot of the wedding cancellation and posted it in the WeChat group. The wedding is off. No need to prepare, everyone. Willow and her friends thought canceling the wedding and calling it quits was the extent of my revenge. But they didn't expect that in just one night, I had already planned a storm that none of them would escape from. Chapter 1. My phone screen suddenly lit up in the darkness, like a pale flash of lightning splitting the heavy silence of the study. I had just finished a cross-ocean video conference, and the burn of the screen's blue light still lingered in my eyes. Fatigue, like cold ocean waves, slowly crept into my limbs. Tomorrow would be my wedding day with Willow. On the corner of the desk, an embossed invitation was stacked with others, silently announcing the grand ceremony that was about to take place. I rubbed my throbbing temples, my fingertips brushing against the cold phone screen. A new message alert popped up, from a number saved as Maria, Willow's best friend. It wasn't a text, it was a video file. I raised my brows ever so slightly. At this hour, I clicked on it casually. The loud, blaring music instantly shattered the quiet of the study, with the kind of obnoxious, pulsating beats typical of a cheap nightclub. The camera was shaking wildly, the lighting dim and hazy, and colorful spotlights randomly sweeping across faces contorted by alcohol and excitement. At the center of the frame was Willow. She was wearing the delicate silk blouse I had sent her out in earlier that day, but now it was wrinkled, clinging to her body. The top two buttons were undone, exposing a small patch of glaring skin and the faint edge of lace. She was sitting on the lap of a strange man, her long hair scattered over her shoulders, her face twisted into a decadent, almost reckless smile I had never seen before. Around her were several familiar yet unfamiliar faces: Maria, Lisa, Sophia, those so-called best friends of Willow, shouting, clapping, and egging her on, their phones nearly pressed up against her face. "Willow, truth or dare, pick one." Maria's sharp voice cut through the music, with an exaggerated excitement. "I choose dare. What are you scared of?" Willow tilted her head back, drinking a large gulp of alcohol, liquid spilling from the corner of her lips. Her eyes lazily scanned the room, finally resting on the face of the man holding her, her gaze dripping with an open, blatant flirtation. "All right, you got guts." Lisa slapped the table, her voice so high-pitched it nearly cracked. "See that? Willow's phone. Call the first man in her recent contacts list. Put it on speaker. Say, 'I miss you.' It has to sound sexy. If it's not sexy, it doesn't count." "Yeah, call him. Do it now." Sophia chimed in, laughing, but her eyes were fixed on Willow's every move, clearly excited for the drama. Willow giggled, her body shifting restlessly in the stranger's lap, seemingly thrilled by the challenge. She fumbled for her phone beside her, her fingers clumsily swiping the screen, movements unsteady from the alcohol. A few seconds later, she seemed to find her target, pressed the button firmly, and proudly turned the screen towards her cheering friends, hitting the speakerphone button. Beep, beep, beep. The monotonous waiting tone stood out sharply against the chaotic background noise, like cold needles stabbing into my eardrums. My left hand, resting on the desk, involuntarily curled into a fist, the knuckles turning pale from the pressure. In the video, Willow pressed the phone back to her ear, still in the man's arms, tilting her head slightly. She spoke into the mic with a voice that was deliberately sweet and sickeningly syrupy. "Hello, yeah, it's me. No, nothing's wrong. I just miss you." The last word stretched out long, dripping with an almost sickening sweetness, like honey-coated poison. "Wow, so hot. Willow is amazing." The friend group erupted in even louder shrieks and whistles, the camera shaking wildly, zooming in to capture every intoxicated expression on Willow's face and the hand of the stranger wrapped around her waist. The video abruptly stopped. The screen darkened, reflecting my own expressionless face. The study was dead silent, except for the heartbeat in my chest, which, after a brief pause, began to pound heavily, slowly, but with an unmistakable rhythm. One beat, then another, striking against my ribs. The sound, magnified in the absolute stillness, made my eardrums hum. Then, Maria's text message appeared. "George, did you see? Willow's having fun. She said it's a necessary ritual for saying goodbye to single life. We couldn't stop her. Don't worry, we'll keep an eye on her. Nothing too out of line will happen. Stick out the tongue, JPG." Every word felt like a searing hot brand, painfully burned into my retina. Ritual. Couldn't stop her. Nothing too out of line. I stared at that message for a full 10 seconds. Then, I moved. There were no furious roars. No uncontrolled smashing of things. My movements could even be described as calm. I unlocked my phone screen, and my fingers moved quickly and precisely across the cold glass. I found the phone number of the hotel manager in charge of the wedding and dialed. "Hello, Manager Lee," I said, my voice steady, without a single ripple, like a bottomless, cold lake. "This is George. I am informing you that the wedding banquet scheduled for tomorrow at 11 a.m. in your Crystal Hall is cancelled immediately. All fees will be deducted from the card I reserved, as per the breach of contract clause. Yes, the entire event is cancelled. My lawyer will contact you regarding any further matters." There seemed to be some astonished inquiry on the other end, but I hung up. I opened the WeChat group called Close Friends and Family, Wedding Prep. In this group were Willow, Maria, Lisa, Sophia, and some relatives and friends from both sides. Just a few hours ago, it had been full of blessings and excitement for tomorrow's wedding. My finger hovered over the screen for a moment before I opened the album and found the screenshot of the hotel cancellation confirmation I had just saved. The large red word "cancelled" on the image was glaring. I selected the image and clicked send. Then, I typed a line of text, each word as cold as ice. "Wedding cancelled. No need to prepare anymore. Send." Having done all this, I placed the phone face down gently on the cold redwood desk. It made a dull, muffled sound. I slowly leaned back into the wide leather chair, tilted my head back, and closed my eyes. The overhead light in the study was a little too bright, casting a flickering, blood-red shadow over my tightly closed eyelids. The heavy, slow rhythm of my heartbeat seemed even clearer now, carrying a destructive force that silently washed away everything I had built over the past 5 years. Tomorrow, there would be no wedding. Chapter 2. The moment I placed my phone face down on the desk, it felt like I had pressed a detonator. After a brief, suffocating silence, the WeChat group named Close Friends and Family, Wedding Prep, exploded like cold water splashing into a hot pan. The first to jump in was Willow's mother. A series of voice messages carrying an almost incredulous sharpness. "George, what the hell is this? What does this screenshot mean? Cancelled? Are you kidding me? The hotel just confirmed the menu with me. You better explain this right now. Where's Willow? Willow, speak up." Next came one of my uncles, his text filled with shock and a barely noticeable hint of panic. "George, what's going on? What happened? This is no joke. Hundreds of guests are waiting tomorrow. Do your parents know about this? At George, bro, did you send this to the wrong group? This is a huge joke." "Man, that was a distant cousin of Willow's. George, what the hell are you doing? Take this back right now. Do you hear me?" Willow's father joined in, his message short but laden with an oppressive anger. The group chat exploded like an out-of-control barrage of messages, filling the screen with doubts, shock, rage, and frantic attempts to fix things, a chaotic blend of emotions, text, and voice messages, threatening to shatter the small phone screen. Yet, at the eye of the storm, Willow and I, strangely, remained silent. My phone lay face down on the desk, quietly isolating me from the uproar. Meanwhile, at a luxury KTV private room on the other side of the city, the deafening music had long since stopped, replaced by a nerve-wracking silence. The intoxicated flush and euphoria on Willow's face vanished the moment she saw the group messages, replaced by a deathly pale whiteness. Her hand trembled violently as she held her phone, her fingertips cold, barely able to grip the small metallic square. On the screen, George's message, "Wedding cancelled," and the glaring hotel cancellation screenshot stabbed like two searing knives straight into her heart. "No, this can't be," she muttered to herself, her voice shaking uncontrollably. She abruptly looked up at Maria, whose face was equally pale. "Maria, what's going on? What does he mean?" Maria was completely stunned, staring at the video she had sent to George, the teasing message accompanying it, and then back at George's cold, decisive declaration in the group. A cold shiver ran up her spine, from the soles of her feet all the way to the top of her head. She had only wanted to share a bit of fun, and maybe give George a little nudge. Let him know that Willow wasn't completely dependent on him, that her best friend Maria was desirable too. She never imagined George's reaction would be so terrifying. He had flipped the table completely. I don't know. Willow. Maria's voice wavered with a note of panic, more fear than anything else. I sent him a video. It was a joke. I didn't know he couldn't take a joke. He's crazy. A video? What video? Willow suddenly grabbed Maria's arm, her nails nearly digging into her flesh. Her voice shot up in pitch, sharp with the near breaking point of hysteria. "What did you send him? Tell me now." Lisa and Sophia rushed over, their faces filled with terror and confusion. They, too, had begun to realize that this out-of-control party game had somehow led to a catastrophic disaster. Maria winced as Willow gripped her arm, panic and fear written all over her face. She fumbled through her phone, pulling up the video she had sent to George and the accompanying message, shoving it in Willow's face. It's that part where you played truth or dare. I sent it to him. I said it was part of the ritual. I didn't know he. Willow barely glanced at the video's thumbnail, herself straddling a stranger's lap, her clothes disheveled, and it was like something inside her exploded. The world went black for a second, and her body swayed, nearly collapsing to the ground. Maria, you fucking ruined me, Willow screamed, her voice shrill and guttural, her hands shoving Maria away as she grabbed her bag and charged for the door. Her high heels clattered desperately against the smooth floor as she ran, a chaotic and hopeless sound. Willow, where are you going? Lisa and Sophia screamed, trying to stop her. Get out of my way, Willow screamed back, her tears finally breaking free, flooding down her face. In her mind, there was only one thought: find George, explain everything. It was just a game, just truth or dare. He couldn't do this. He couldn't cancel the wedding. She burst out of the KTV, the cold night wind cutting like knives against her face, but it couldn't cool the panic and burning pain in her chest. Her hand trembled as she dialed George's number over and over again. Beep, beep, beep. The busy signal, cold, monotonous, and endlessly repetitive. Each time the signal sounded, it felt like a hammer smashing into the fragile defense around her heart. She refused to give up, switching to WeChat, frantically sending voice messages, texts, and video calls to George. George, pick up the phone. Let me explain. It was just a game. They were egging me on. I was drunk. It's not real. Please, please pick up. The wedding can't be cancelled. I love you. I only love you. George, I was wrong. I'm so sorry. Will you please say something, please? Her voice messages, full of desperation, sobs, and incoherence, sank into the abyss, not stirring even the slightest response from him. The George who once responded to her every need, the one who was gentle and understanding, was now like a silent iceberg, blocking her every plea and explanation. Willow slid down against the cold wall, her body collapsing in a heap on the pavement. Her expensive wedding dress, now stained with dirt, went unnoticed as she hugged her knees and buried her face deeply in them. Her shoulders shook violently, and the sound of her suppressed, desperate sobs echoed through the empty street, a haunting, sorrowful sound. It was over. She realized it with brutal clarity. George's silence was far more terrifying than any angry outburst. It was the silence of a heart dead to her, a final, unyielding decision that left no room for reconciliation. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, the light in my study remained on. I sat, still with my eyes closed, leaning back in my chair, as though I had fallen asleep. But my right hand, resting on the armrest, had unconsciously clenched into a fist. The veins on the back of my hand stood out, and the knuckles creaked with the faint, painful sound of tension. On the desk, the phone, face down, continued to vibrate, shifting slightly with each buzz, the faint glow from its screen casting light on my tightly clenched jaw, cold and hard. Chapter 3. The light in the study remained on all night. When the first pale streak of gray-white appeared on the horizon and the city awoke in the hazy morning light, I slowly opened my eyes. My eyes were bloodshot, but they were unusually clear, even sharp, carrying a cold, piercing clarity forged from an entire sleepless night. The silence of the night had not dissipated anything. Rather, it had made the fire that burned slowly in my chest more solid, more frigid. I picked up the phone on the desk, which had long since stopped vibrating. The screen unlocked, instantly overwhelmed by countless missed calls and unread messages marked with red dots. Most of them were from Willow, mixed with anxious inquiries and demands from both families, relatives, and friends. I scanned them expressionlessly, my fingers not pausing on any message. I went straight to the contacts and found a number marked Luis Lawyer. Dialing it, the call was quickly answered by a calm and professional male voice. Mr. Jean, so early, Luis. Sorry to disturb you. My voice was a bit hoarse, but my words were precise and clear. My wedding is cancelled. Now, I need you to handle a few things. Cancelled. Luis's voice carried clear surprise, but his professional demeanor quickly brought him back to composure. Understood. Please go ahead. First, immediately initiate the lawsuit against MS Willow to recover all the betrothal gifts paid by me and my parents, including cash, jewelry, the portion of the property title that was transferred, and all the expenses we incurred during the wedding preparations. I'll send you the list and supporting documents to your email shortly. My pace was calm, as if I were stating a business decision unrelated to myself. Second, regarding the property, Blue Sky Garden, Building B, Room 1701, which was intended as the marital home, Immediately apply for asset preservation. Prevent Willow and her family from disposing of or transferring any part of it. The keys and access cards are in her hands. If necessary, apply for enforcement to replace the locks. Third, gather and organize all the evidence from last night, or rather, around midnight today, regarding Willow's participation in the so-called bachelorette party at Mi's KTV, especially any videos or photos involving her behavior. The primary sources will be Maria, Lisa, and Sophia. Luis was silent for a few seconds, clearly processing the sudden and weighty instructions. Mr. Jean, I understand your feelings, but the return of the betrothal gifts and property division requires factual evidence and legal grounds, especially since the other party may claim cohabitation or, there was no cohabitation. I interrupted him, my tone firm and resolute. The marital home was barely finished being renovated 3 months ago. She occasionally stayed over, but never truly lived there. All expenses and transactions are clear. As for the evidence, I paused, my voice growing colder. I will provide it. You only need to ensure the legal procedures are followed and that the pursuit is as aggressive as possible. Understood. Luis no longer asked further questions. I'll get started immediately. As for the evidence, especially the video, we need to be particularly careful about the legality of the sources. I understand. Just proceed with the legal process, I said, hanging up the phone. I put down the phone and walked over to the large floor-to-ceiling window. The faint light of dawn outlined a tall, solitary figure. I watched the street below gradually wake up as traffic started to gather and pedestrians hurried along. The world kept moving according to its rhythm, as if last night's abruptly halted wedding drama was just an insignificant speck of dust. But for me, everything was just beginning. Canceling the wedding was only the pause button. The real reckoning had just begun. Maria, Lisa, Sophia, and Willow. Not one of them would escape. I needed a more direct, more efficient, and more precisely targeted way to strike at their weaknesses. The legal process was a safeguard, a bottom line. But to make them truly understand what it felt like to wish they were dead, I would need some extra methods. I turned back to my desk and opened my computer. The cold glow of the screen reflected my expressionless face. I logged into an extremely private cloud storage space, protected by multiple layers of verification. It contained many files, mostly business backups, but there was one inconspicuous folder titled Affiliated Party Information. For reference, I opened the folder, which contained several subfolders, each corresponding to the names Maria, Lisa, and Sophia. These were bits of information I had gathered over the past few years due to Willow's relationships, things I had encountered or learned to some degree. As someone who always liked to be in control and focused on risk prevention, I had unintentionally kept track of certain things, and now, those seemingly small pieces of information had become the sharpest weapons. I first opened the folder marked Maria. Inside were several photos from the opening of Maria's internet-famous light food restaurant, Good Times, which Willow had dragged me to for support. There were also screenshots of Maria flaunting her restaurant's financial figures on social media. She had blurred out some key numbers, but I had clearer versions. And an electronic document detailing how Maria had proudly bragged to Willow about using 2 sets of ledgers for tax avoidance and channeling large amounts of cash through private accounts. I paused on the record about the 2 sets of ledgers, my gaze cold. I picked up my phone, not dialing but composing a text message to a number I rarely contacted, but one that was absolutely reliable and influential. It was the son of an old friend of my father's, a man who held a high position in the tax system. The message was brief and to the point. Uncle Gene, sorry to disturb you. I have information regarding Good Times Light Food, legal representative Maria, suspected of serious tax evasion, using dual ledgers, with clear evidence pointing to it. I will send the formal complaint materials shortly. Please take note. George, send. Next, I opened the folder marked Lisa. Lisa had gotten married last year to a simple, honest programmer. There wasn't much in the folder, just a screenshot of a post she made a few months before her wedding. In it, she complained about her fiancé being too dull and unromantic. The picture was of her and a man in a bar, bathed in soft lighting, with the man's arm draped around her shoulder in a familiar, intimate pose. The caption read, "Still, my old classmate knows how to appreciate the finer things." Those were the days. The man in the photo, I vaguely remembered him. He was Lisa's ex-boyfriend, a well-known playboy. Willow had once gossiped to me about how Lisa had kept in touch with her ex before the wedding, even recording some sappy voice messages. My fingertips lightly tapped on the desk. I opened a professional audio editing software and found an old recording in a deeper backup. It was a segment that Willow had unintentionally recorded during a late-night chat with Lisa. In the recording, Lisa could clearly be heard mimicking her voice to send a flirty message to her ex. You bad boy, only just thinking of me now. Can't your wife satisfy you? Miss me? I miss the smell of you." Willow had thought it was funny and shared it with me, then forgotten to delete it. I extracted the audio and saved it. Then, using an untraceable virtual number and anonymous email, I sent the recording, along with the screenshot of Lisa's intimate post with her ex, to Lisa's husband's work email. The subject line was chillingly simple: listen. Finally, I opened the folder labeled Sophia. Sophia worked as the creative director at a highly competitive advertising firm. She was currently competing for a major real estate project called Orange Bay, which was crucial for her career. Inside the folder was a document, information I had overheard from a business partner about Sophia's firm's main competitor, Creative Media, which seemed intent on winning the Orange Bay project. The document mentioned that a key figure at Creative Media had close personal ties to someone critical on the client side. My eyes lingered on the words Creative Media and key client figure. I paused for a moment, then picked up my phone and dialed another number. This time, my tone was businesslike, distant. Mr. Ning, good morning. It's George. I have a small matter that may help your company secure the Orange Bay project. Yes, I've come across some information about the core strategy for Linksy Advertising, Sophia's firm, quite specific. It's just a small favor. No need to thank me. I'll send the details to your private email shortly. All right. Looking forward to working together. I hung up the phone and sent a carefully edited document containing only the core creative concepts and key pricing strategies from Sophia's proposal, information that Willow had overheard Sophia boasting about and passed on to me, to Mr. Ning's email at Creative Media. After completing all of this, I shut down the computer. The study fell back into quiet. I walked to the liquor cabinet, poured myself a glass of cold water, and drank it in one gulp. The icy liquid slid down my throat, bringing a brief moment of stimulation. This was only the beginning. I looked out the window. The sky was fully bright now. The sunlight was harsh, yet it couldn't dissipate the coldness in my eyes. Willow and her so-called best friends, are you ready for the consequences of your ritual? Chapter 4. Maria was jolted awake by a loud, rapid knocking on the door, as if someone was trying to smash through the wood. The headache from her hangover felt like a blunt axe hacking at her temples. Annoyed, she groggily mumbled and turned over in her blanket, hoping to block out the irritating noise. She hoarsely shouted, her voice raspy, "Who's there? It's early in the morning. What do you want?" From outside came a stern, cold voice that cut through the door, carrying an undeniable authority. "Open the door. Tax inspection." "Maria, open the door. Tax inspection." The words hit Maria like a bucket of cold water, instantly driving away the sleepiness. She sat up in bed with a sudden jolt, her heart tightening as though gripped by an icy hand. A sense of foreboding, cold and venomous like a snake, immediately slithered up her spine. She scrambled out of bed, hastily throwing on a robe, barefoot as she rushed to the door. Trembling, she peered through the peephole. Standing outside were three men in dark blue uniforms, their expressions serious. The one in the lead held up an ID card and was staring directly at the peephole. "It's over." Maria's mind went blank with a loud buzzing sound. Her worst nightmare had come true. The dual ledgers, the cash flow, all those clever tricks she thought were foolproof. She nearly collapsed as she unlocked the door. "Are you Ms. Maria?" The lead inspector showed his ID, his tone formal and cold. "We are from the city's taxation bureau. According to a real name report and preliminary investigation, your Good Times Light Food restaurant is suspected of serious tax evasion. We are here to conduct a tax inspection of your business premises and residence. Here is the inspection notice and our credentials. Please cooperate." I. Maria's face turned pale as paper, her lips trembling, unable to say a word. She watched as the inspectors began rifling through the cash register, computers, even heading toward the locked drawer where she kept her private accounts. She felt her blood rush to her head and then drain away, leaving only a bone-chilling cold. No, let me explain." She tried desperately to stop them, her voice breaking. "Someone set me up. It must have been George. That bastard George reported me. It's because of last night. Ma'am, please cooperate with the investigation. Any questions can be addressed to your lawyer, or you may make a statement after the investigation concludes." The inspector interrupted, his expression unwavering, his professional demeanor as cold as a wall. "Now, please hand over all your ledgers, receipts, bank transaction records, and electronic devices, including those in your personal name." Maria looked at the list the inspector handed her, her once proud restaurant now being turned upside down. She watched her staff's terrified and confused faces as they worked, and the overwhelming fear and despair finally overwhelmed her. Her legs gave way, and she slid down against the doorframe to the cold floor, covering her face as she let out a gut-wrenching cry. "My store. It's over. It's all over. George, Willow, you've ruined me." At the same time, on the other side of the city, in a normal residential neighborhood, Lisa's husband, Martin, a shy programmer with black-framed glasses, sat at the dining table silently eating breakfast. His face looked terrible, bloodshot eyes staring blankly at his nearly untouched soy milk and fried dough sticks. Lisa, with dark circles under her eyes from the previous night's shock and hangover, emerged from the bedroom. She was feeling sluggish and mentally drained. Seeing her husband's expression, her heart sank, and she forced a smile, trying to shake off the gloom. "Good morning, darling. Last night the company had a last-minute overtime, and I came back late. I saw you were already asleep, so I didn't wake you." She tried to use her usual excuse to smooth things over. Martin didn't look up or respond. Instead, he picked up his phone from the side, unlocked the screen, opened his email, and then turned the phone toward Lisa, slamming it down heavily on the table. The sharp slap echoed through the quiet morning, piercing the stillness like a loud crack of thunder. Lisa jumped at the sound, instinctively looking at the screen. When she saw the screenshot of her and her ex-boyfriend, looking intimate in the bar's dim lighting, along with the glaring audio file icon, the color drained from her face instantly. Her lips began to tremble. "Oh, honey, let me explain. This was a long time ago," she stammered, reaching out to grab the phone. Martin swiftly pulled the phone back, tapping the screen with a single touch. Instantly, Lisa's voice, flirtatious, provocative, and laced with suggestion, rang out clearly in the small dining room. "Ah, you bad boy, only now thinking of me. Can't your wife satisfy you? Miss me? I miss the smell of you." Each word was like a needle dipped in poison, stabbing into Lisa's ears, and piercing the last of Martin's illusions. He listened to his wife speak in a way she had never spoken to him, using a tone so lewd, so unbecoming, to another man, and his body trembled with rage and humiliation. "It's not like that. Honey, please listen to me." Lisa panicked completely, lunging to grab the phone. It was a game of truth or dare. They made me record it. It's not real. I swear. It's Maria and them. Truth or dare. Martin finally lifted his head, his eyes bloodshot, glaring at Lisa with a cold, unfamiliar expression, one filled with the pain and disgust of total betrayal. "Lisa, do you think I'm an idiot? This voice, this tone, you expect me to believe it's a game? You're missing his smell, He suddenly stood up, the legs of the chair screeching loudly against the floor. Pointing at Lisa, his finger trembling with fury, he shouted, "I've been a damn fool, led around in circles by you. Marriage, having kids with you, I spit on that. Divorce, Lisa, I can't live another day with you. No, honey, I was wrong. I swear I was wrong." Lisa cried out, rushing to grab Martin's legs. "It's them. It's Willow. It was that party. Please forgive me this once, just this once." Martin violently shoved her away, the force sending her stumbling to the floor. He didn't even glance at her as he grabbed his coat from the chair and his phone from the table, storming out the door without looking back, slamming it behind him. Bang. The deafening slam of the door sounded like a death knell in Lisa's ears. She slumped to the cold floor, staring at the empty doorway, listening to the distant sound of Martin's departing footsteps, the overwhelming panic and regret engulfing her like a tidal wave. She knew her marriage was over. All because of that damn game last night, because of Maria's teasing, and her own pathetic vanity and indulgence. "Maria, Willow, you won't get away with this," she cried out, pounding the floor in despair. Chapter 5. Sophia almost stepped into the doors of Linksy Advertising right on the dot. She hadn't slept well last night either, dark circles heavy beneath her eyes, but her professional demeanor pushed her to keep up appearances. Today was the final proposal day for the Orange Bay project. This multi-million-dollar deal was the key to her promotion to partner at the company. She and her team had pulled countless all-nighters, pouring their hearts and souls into this proposal. She quickly walked toward her private office, the sound of her high heels hitting the floor like a rhythmic, tense countdown. As she passed through the open office space, she couldn't help but notice something was off. Many employees were glancing at her surreptitiously, their eyes filled with mixed emotions. As soon as they caught her gaze, they quickly lowered their heads and pretended to be busy. Sophia felt a sinking feeling in her chest, an ominous premonition creeping up on her. She furrowed her brow and quickened her pace. When she opened the door to her office, her boss, Vice President Tang, was already sitting behind her desk with a grim expression. Beside him stood the project director, who also wore a similarly dark expression. "Mr. Tang, what's going on?" Sophia's heart sank as she forced a smile, her mind racing. "Sophia." Tang slammed his fist on the desk, standing up abruptly, his voice rising in anger, even cracking with frustration. "You've done a hell of a job." Sophia froze, startled. "Mr. Tang, what happened? What happened?" Tang's entire body shook with fury as he pointed at her. "Orange Bay, our proposal, our core concepts, our pricing strategy, it's all been leaked. Just this morning, 2 hours before our presentation, Creative Media came in with nearly the exact same proposal, just a different cover, and they undercut us by 5 points. They've already gone to the client's CEO." "What?" Sophia's world seemed to collapse around her. She stood frozen, her blood draining from her face. "That can't be. No way. The proposal was only in our core team's hands. No way." Tang's anger reached its peak. He sneered as he slammed a stack of printed papers down onto the desk in front of her. Take a look for yourself. Creative Media's proposal summary. Isn't this cloud life concept yours? Isn't this immersive experience flow your core idea? Isn't this emotional resonance trilogy your campaign strategy that you spent 3 nights working on? And this pricing. They even nailed the negotiation margin we reserved. Sophia, tell me this is not possible. Sophia's hands trembled as she picked up the papers, and just a quick glance made her vision go blurry. It was too similar. No. It wasn't just similar, it was a damn copy of her proposal. Those ideas she had been so proud of, those so-called killer concepts, now felt like a series of hard slaps right to her face. No, it wasn't me. Mr. Tang, please believe me. How could I leak my own proposal? What would I gain from that? Sophia's voice cracked, her eyes filling with tears. It must have been Creative Media. They must have used some dirty trick. Dirty trick, the project director snorted, his voice dripping with skepticism and disdain. Sophia, as I recall, Creative Media's CEO Ning is your university senior, right? And I've heard someone saw you meeting with him alone at the Blue Jazz Cafe last Friday evening for nearly 2 hours. Is that true? Sophia's head was pounding, as if it were about to explode. Last Friday, she did meet with Ning, her university senior, but it was because of Willow. Willow had been crying on the phone about how cold George had been toward her recently. To comfort her, Sophia had arranged to meet Ning, who had extensive connections in the advertising industry, to subtly inquire if George was under too much work pressure or facing personal problems. They had talked only about Willow and George's situation. She never mentioned a word about the Orange Bay project. I did meet with Mr. Ning, but it was for personal matters. It was because of Willow. Sophia desperately tried to explain. Enough. Tang cut her off harshly, his gaze as cold as a blade. Personal matters. Sophia, do you think we're idiots? What a coincidence. The proposal leaks just hours before the presentation, and you're caught meeting the competitor's CEO privately. Now, the client is furious, thinking we lack professionalism, even suspecting we colluded with Creative Media. This project is dead. Hundreds of thousands invested, months of effort from the entire team, all wasted. Can you take responsibility for this? Sophia opened her mouth, but no words came out. The immense injustice and panic left her feeling numb. She looked at Tang's furious face, at the project director's disdainful look, and heard the murmurs from the office outside. She finally understood that she had fallen into a carefully laid trap. The bait had been her misplaced concern for Willow and her petty drama. Mr. Tang, I really didn't. She weakly tried to explain, her voice barely a whisper. Whether you did or not is not for you to decide. Tang took a deep breath, struggling to control his anger, but his eyes, filled with disappointment and finality, said everything. Sophia, you're suspended, effective immediately. Hand over all your access cards, work laptop, and project files. Cooperate with the internal investigation until the investigation is complete. You are not to engage with any company business or clients in any form. Understood? Suspended. Investigation. These 2 words were like mountains, crashing down on Sophia. Her vision went black, and she stumbled, barely able to steady herself by gripping the edge of the desk. Her carefully cultivated career image, the partner position within reach, her reputation in the industry, all gone, all because of that damn party, because of Maria's foolishness, because of Willow, that disaster. It's George, it has to be him. Sophia mumbled to herself, her eyes hollow. He's taking revenge. He's so ruthless. Get out. Tang pointed to the door, his voice cold and unyielding. Sophia had no idea how she made it out of that familiar office. She was holding an empty cardboard box with only a few insignificant personal items inside. Under the gaze of countless eyes, some sympathetic, others gleeful, some probing, she wandered through the office area like a lost soul, heading for the elevator. Each step felt heavier than the last. The elevator doors closed slowly, shutting out everything from the outside. In the small, confined space, Sophia leaned against the cold elevator wall, unable to hold herself up any longer. She slid down the wall to the floor. The box tipped over, and her belongings scattered everywhere. She pressed her hands to her face, her muffled sobs echoing in the small, sealed space. It was over. Everything was over. George's revenge, precise and cruel, had struck at their most vulnerable spots. Maria's store, Lisa's marriage, Sophia's career. In a single night, everything had turned upside down, and it all started because of Willow, because of that damn bachelorette party. Hatred, like poison ivy, was growing wildly inside her. Fear of George and resentment toward Willow intertwined, almost consuming her entirely. Chapter 6. Willow Lu felt like she was about to lose her mind. Since the wedding was called off, her world had completely crumbled. George had vanished like a ghost, not answering her calls, ignoring her messages, and blocking all her contact information. She had visited his company, only to be politely but coldly stopped by the receptionist. "Sorry, Miss Liu. Mr. Jean has instructed us not to see any visitors." She had gone to their former wedding home, Blue Sky Garden, only to find the locks had been changed. The cold, metallic lock hole mocked her futile attempts. The security guard at the property, though polite, distanced himself. "Mr. Jean has already informed the management, prohibiting Miss Liu from entering this unit. Please don't make it difficult for us." Home had become the only place she could curl up, yet it was also the most painful prison. Her parents' emotions had swung from initial shock and anger to later pleading and scolding, like a roller coaster ride. "Willow, what did you do? George is such a calm person. How could he suddenly act like this? Did you do something outside of the marriage?" Her mother's eyes were red with tears, and her words trailed off, but the implication was clear. "You're a disgrace." Her father, furious, threw a teacup, shattering it and spilling tea all over the floor. "You've ruined my reputation. All our relatives and friends were informed, and the hotel is booked. Now it's all a joke. How do you expect me to explain this? Should I say the Jean family doesn't want you anymore?" "Huh. Dad, Mom, it's not like that," Willow cried out, explaining again and again. "It was Maria and the others. They were just messing around with a dare. I had too much to drink. I only made a phone call. George misunderstood. He wouldn't even listen to me." "A dare? A phone call?" Her mother's voice suddenly became sharp, filled with disbelief. "Who did you call? What did you say? What could possibly make him cancel the wedding?" "Willow, you better tell me the truth." Willow was speechless, her face pale. How could she admit to saying, "I miss you"? How could she explain that she had been sitting on a stranger's lap at the time? Her silence was seen as an admission by her parents. Disappointment and anger washed over them like a cold tide, instantly engulfing them. "Get out. Go back to your room. I don't have a daughter like you." Her father pointed at her bedroom door, shaking with rage. Willow locked herself in her room, the curtains drawn tightly to shut out all light. The room was filled with the sour, rotting smell of spoiled food and tears. She curled up in the corner of her bed like a wounded, abandoned cub. Her phone screen glowed, still on George's WeChat interface. The last message she had sent was still there, a glaring red exclamation mark. Just then, the phone suddenly vibrated wildly, not a call, but a barrage of messages from the group chat. It was the Plastic Sisters group, Maria, Lisa, Sophia, and her smaller circle that had been silent for days. Maria's messages came in rapid succession, filled with hysterical bitterness. "At Willow, you jinx, you bitch, it's all your fault. My shop got sealed by the tax authorities. I'm finished. My life is over. That bastard George reported me. He's so cruel. It's all because of you. Why don't you just die?" The following images appeared: a shop door sealed with tape, a messy and chaotic scene inside the store, and a close-up of a tax audit notice. Then came Lisa's sobbing message, filled with utter despair. "At Willow, my husband wants a divorce. He threw the recordings and photos in my face. He doesn't want me anymore. They're taking the house back. I've lost everything. Are you happy now? It's all because of that damn game. Maria, it's all your fault. Your stupid idea. Willow, why didn't you refuse back then? Why did you play? You've ruined us." Sophia's message, however, was filled with cold, suffocating hatred. "Willow, I've been suspended from my job. The Orange Bay project is ruined. The plan was leaked, and the company blames me for it. Millions in losses, and my career is completely destroyed. Just because that night, I went to meet Senior Zhang to inquire about George, to comfort you. He used me. Willow, you're really a great friend. Do you feel George's revenge? All of us are paying the price for your indulgence and stupidity, and we're burying you." One message after another, like poisoned whips, lashed at Willow's already battered heart. The accusations, curses, and laments from her best friends shattered the last fragments of hope and self-deception she had. It wasn't a misunderstanding. George wasn't acting on impulse. He was truly taking revenge, and with such ruthless precision. One strike to the heart, Maria's store, Lisa's marriage, Sophia's career, all destroyed. Was she the next target? A paralyzing fear gripped her like a cold, monstrous hand, squeezing her throat and making it hard to breathe. She stared at the bitter words in the group chat, looked at the photo of Maria's store sealed up, listened to Lisa's broken sobbing, and imagined Sophia's humiliation as she was fired from the company. Her body trembled uncontrollably. "No, it wasn't me. It was you. It was you who egged me on," she muttered frantically at the screen, tears pouring down her face. "It was Maria. You wanted to play. You wanted to take the photos. You wanted to send them to him." At that moment, the doorbell rang. It wasn't a hasty, frantic knock, but a steady, calm, and almost unignorable chime. Willow jolted, her heart racing, and looked fearfully at the door. "Willow, go open the door. See who it is." Her mother's voice called from the living room, tinged with anxiety. Trembling, Willow practically crawled off the bed, barefoot. Inching toward the door, she shakily looked through the peephole. 2 men stood outside, both in sharp suits and serious expressions. One of them she recognized. It was George's private lawyer, Mr. Zhou. The other held an envelope stamped with the court's official seal. Willow's heart stopped, and her blood seemed to freeze in her veins. "MS. Willow, please open the door," the lawyer, Luis, said coldly through the door. "We are Mr. George's legal representatives, authorized by him, and bearing the court's documents. We are here to deliver the copy of the lawsuit, summons, and property preservation order. Please cooperate." Lawsuit, property preservation. These words struck Willow like a hammer to the eardrums. Her final psychological defenses collapsed. "No." She let out a shrill scream, not even resembling a human cry, collapsing against the door, sliding limply to the cold floor. Her hands clutched her ears tightly, as if trying to block out the death-like sound of the bell and the cold words. Outside the door, Luis waited for a few seconds, but receiving no response, he nodded to his assistant. The assistant slid a thick stack of documents, sealed with the court's red stamp, under the door. The sound of the paper slipping in echoed like the scraping of a scythe. There was nowhere left for her to run. Chapter 7. The stack of documents, cold with the atmosphere of the court, slid under the door like a burning iron, scorching the Liu household into silence. Pablo, Willow Liu's father, trembled as he picked up the civil lawsuit document. When he saw the first request for litigation, order the defendant, Willow, to return the bride price of 780,000 renminbi to the plaintiff, George. His vision blurred, and he nearly passed out. 780,000. He slammed the lawsuit onto the coffee table, the old glass surface groaning under the pressure. "George, is he trying to kill us?" Camila, Willow's mother, grabbed the lawsuit, her hands freezing as she read through the long bride price list attached. Bride price list. Engagement cash, 288,000 renminbi. 00, in words, 288,000 yuan. Paid by the plaintiff's parents to the defendant's parents through a matchmaker on date. Gold jewelry, gold necklace, gold bracelet, gold earrings purchased at XX jewelry store. Total value 86,500 renminbi. 00, invoice no. XXXXX. Delivered to the defendant by the plaintiff on date. Diamond ring, 1. 5 carats purchased at XX jewelry. Valued at 158,000 renminbi. 00, invoice no. XXXXX. GIA certificate no. XXXXX. Delivered to the defendant by the plaintiff on date. Marriage house, Blue Sky Garden, B building. Unit 1701. Name change fees. This property was the plaintiff's personal property before marriage. To formalize the marriage, the plaintiff agreed to add the defendant as a co-owner, 50% share. The related taxes, stamp duty, and registration fees totaled 65,200 renminbi. 00, payment receipts attached, to be borne by the plaintiff. Wedding preparations expenses, paid portion including hotel deposit 50,000 renminbi. 00, wedding company deposit 30,000 renminbi. 00, wedding dress rental deposit 15,000 renminbi. 00, miscellaneous items like wedding candy and invitations 10,300 renminbi. 00, total 105,300 renminbi. 00, contracts and payment receipts attached, all paid by the plaintiff. Large gifts during the relationship, for defendant's personal use including XX brand, handbag, value 32,000 renminbi. 00, invoice no. XXXXX, XX brand, watch, value 28,000 renminbi. 00, invoice no. XXXXX, total 60,000 renminbi. 00, total amount, 780,000 renminbi. 00, in words, 780,000 yuan. Each item was clearly listed with time, place, amount, and receipt numbers, as if each was a precise knife, slicing apart what was once thought to be affection, and leaving only a naked monetary transaction. This diamond ring, this bag, wasn't he giving them to her willingly? How can this count as a bride price? Camila stammered, pointing at the list, trying to clutch at the last straw. Willingly, Pablo gave a bitter laugh, pointing at the legal citation in the lawsuit. Look here, the lawyer wrote it all out clearly. Article 5. Large gifts given for the purpose of marriage, if the marriage doesn't happen, must be returned. 780,000. 780,000. Where are we supposed to get that kind of money? The Liu family was just an ordinary working-class household. Pablo had been laid off early in his career and now worked odd jobs, while Camila, a retired teacher, had a meager pension to help Willow with her wedding. They had almost emptied their savings to provide a dowry, but compared to the nearly 780,000 yuan bride price, their savings were nothing more than a drop in the bucket. It's all your fault. All your fault. You useless thing. Pablo suddenly turned to Willow, who was huddled in the corner of the sofa, pale and silent. All his fear and despair turned into raging fury. You ruined a good marriage, and now the creditors are knocking at our door. 780,000. What are we supposed to pay them with? Our lives. Dad. Mom. Willow's lips trembled. Her tears long dried up, leaving only numb fear. I'll go find him. I'll beg him. Beg him. What will you beg with? Camila also collapsed, crying out, what's happened to your good friends? Maria's shop is sealed. Lisa is getting a divorce. Sophia has lost her job. George is dead set on ruining you, ruining our family, and now you want to beg him. He won't even let you through the door. The atmosphere of despair hung like a heavy, oppressive cloud in the small living room, making it hard to breathe. At that moment, Willow's phone rang. It was an unfamiliar local landline number. Like a frightened bird, she stared at the number, unwilling to answer. Answer it. Let's see which devil is here to collect, Pablo shouted. Willow shakily pressed the answer button and brought the phone to her ear. Hello, hello. Good day. May I speak to Ms. Willow? A young but businesslike female voice came from the other end. I am. This is the Litigation Service Center of XX District People's Court. You are involved in a marriage property dispute case with Mr. George, case no. XXXX. Our court has formally accepted the case. This is to notify you that the hearing is scheduled for, date, at 9:30 a.m. in Court X. The court summons and copies of the evidence submitted by the plaintiff have been mailed to your registered address via judicial special mail. Please be sure to check for them. If you fail to attend without a valid reason, the court will proceed with a default judgment. Please keep your phone available for contact. Goodbye. Beep, beep, beep. The busy tone rang. Willow held the phone in her hand. As if clutching a burning iron, she stood there blankly, listening to the busy signal. While hearing her parents' desperate cries and curses, she felt the whole world spinning, collapsing around her. The court, the hearing, the summons. George, he really did sue her. He didn't leave her a single ounce of mercy, nor any chance for private reconciliation. He wanted to use the cold, public legal process to nail her to the pillar of shame and claw back every single yuan of that 780,000. The cold fear finally overwhelmed her completely. Her legs gave way, and she collapsed onto the floor, staring blankly at the ceiling, like a soulless body drained of life. Chapter 8. XX District People's Court. Court X. The deep brown judge's bench loomed high, the national emblem solemnly displayed. The air was thick with the cold scent of disinfectant and inked paper. In the gallery, there were only a few people, mostly my family, their faces tense and solemn, along with Willow's parents. The two elderly people seemed to have aged 10 years overnight, hunched with their backs bent, their eyes filled with fear and despair. Willow sat in the defendant's seat, wearing an old, dull-colored dress that seemed out of place. It was the only respectable outfit she could find in her panic. Her face was as pale as if it were transparent, with deep circles under her eyes, and her lips cracked and dry from nervousness and dehydration. Her hands were tightly clasped together on her lap, her knuckles turning white from the pressure, her body trembling uncontrollably. She dared not look up at the judge's bench, nor could she bring herself to glance at the plaintiff's seat across from her. I entered the courtroom, dressed in a well-tailored dark gray suit, the collar of my white shirt crisp, without a tie, exuding a subtle air of coldness. I sat in the plaintiff's seat, sitting upright, my profile sharp and defined under the cold white lights of the courtroom. My gaze was calm as it rested on the judge's bench, occasionally flicking over the documents in my hands. Throughout the proceedings, I never once cast even a glance toward the defendant's seat. This was a complete, frigid disregard, far more suffocating and despair-inducing than any angry glare could ever be for Willow. Court is now in session. The presiding judge struck the gavel, his voice booming with undeniable authority. The case of Plaintiff George versus Defendant Willow, a marriage property dispute, is now under trial. First, the plaintiff will present the claim, facts, and reasons for the lawsuit. My attorney, Luis, stood up. He adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and spoke with clarity and composure, his voice steady and measured, exuding the calm professionalism of an experienced lawyer. Your Honor, members of the court, Plaintiff George and Defendant Willow were scheduled to marry on date. However, on the night before the wedding, at the defendant's so-called bachelorette party on date, the defendant's actions were a severe violation of public morals, causing significant emotional harm to the plaintiff, which directly led to the cancellation of the wedding and the dissolution of the engagement. Luis paused for a moment, his gaze sweeping toward the defendant's seat, where Willow's head drooped even lower. Based on this, the plaintiff, pursuant to Article 5, requests that the defendant be ordered to return the following items given with the intent to facilitate marriage, totaling 780,000 renminbi, 780,000 yuan. He picked up the prepared, bride price list, and began reading each item aloud. His voice wasn't loud, but every word struck Willow and her parents like a hammer. 1. Engagement cash, 288,000 renminbi. 00, in words, 288,000 yuan. 2. Gold jewelry, gold necklace, gold bracelet, gold earrings valued at 86,500 renminbi. 00. 3. Diamond ring, 1. 5 carats valued at 158,000 renminbi. 00. 4. Property name change tax and related fees for the wedding house, 65,200 renminbi. 00. 5. Paid wedding preparation expenses, 105,300 renminbi. 00. 6. Large gifts during the relationship, 60,000 renminbi. 00. Each of these items is supported by bank transfer receipts, shopping invoices, tax payment records, contracts, and payment receipts, all of which have been submitted to the court. After reading the list, Luis continued, the plaintiff believes that the defendant's actions during the engagement period, especially her misconduct on the night before the wedding, are the fundamental reasons for the dissolution of the engagement. The defendant accepted the aforementioned assets with the intent of marriage. Now, due to the defendant's own actions, the marriage cannot be carried out. In accordance with legal provisions and principles of fairness, the defendant should return the full amount of the assets. This concludes the plaintiff's statement. The presiding judge looked toward the defendant's seat. Defendant, please respond to the plaintiff's claims and facts. Willow's lawyer, a middle-aged man who looked somewhat nervous, hired by the Liu family at considerable cost, stood up and cleared his throat. Your Honor, our defense is as follows. First, the plaintiff's claims regarding the defendant's behavior at the bachelorette party are nothing more than a normal gathering among friends. The defendant was in a state of intoxication. Her actions were uncontrollable, and no substantial harm was caused. Therefore, it should not be grounds for dissolving the engagement or demanding the return of the bride price. Second, certain items, such as the diamond ring, branded handbag, and watch, were gifts during the relationship, voluntarily given by the plaintiff, and should not be considered part of the bride price and therefore should not be returned. Third, the name change on the marriage property was done in preparation for living together, and the related costs should not be the sole responsibility of the defendant. Fourth, part of the wedding preparation costs have already been incurred and cannot be refunded. In conclusion, the plaintiff's claims lack both factual and legal basis, and we request the court to dismiss the case. The court will now proceed with evidence presentation. The presiding judge announced. Luis was the first to present the evidence. His movements were swift, his logic clear. Exhibit 1. Bank transfer receipt proving the plaintiff's parents paid 288,000 renminbi to the defendant's parents as engagement cash. Exhibit 2. Invoice from XX Jewelry Store. Photos of the items, proving that the 3 gold jewelry pieces, valued at 86,500 renminbi, were delivered to the defendant. Exhibit 3. Invoice from XX Jewelry, GIA certificate, and photos of the diamond ring, proving that the ring, valued at 158,000 renminbi, was purchased by the plaintiff and given to the defendant. Exhibit 4. Tax payment receipts and a copy of the property deed from the Real Estate Registration Center, showing the defendant and plaintiff each hold a 50% share, proving that the 65,200 renminbi tax fee for adding the defendant's name to the property was borne by the plaintiff. Exhibit 5. Hotel deposit receipt, wedding company contract and deposit payment receipt, wedding dress rental contract and deposit receipt, and a list of items such as wedding candy and invitations, with payment records, proving the wedding preparation costs totaling 105,300 renminbi, all paid by the plaintiff. Exhibit 6. Invoices for the purchase of a XX brand handbag and XX brand watch, with photos, proving that the plaintiff purchased these items for the defendant during the relationship, totaling 60,000 renminbi. Exhibit 7. Key evidence, video file and original carrier, extracted from Maria's phone. Luis's voice suddenly grew heavier as he operated the computer. The courtroom's projection screen began showing the video of that unforgettable scene for Willow, loud music, dim lighting, and Willow, dressed inappropriately, sitting on a stranger's lap while making a phone call, speaking in a sweet, coquettish tone. I miss you. This video was sent by the defendant's friend, Maria, to the plaintiff on the night before the wedding, directly causing the plaintiff to cancel the wedding. The video clearly documents the defendant's severe misconduct during the engagement period, on the eve of the wedding, which violated public morals and caused significant emotional harm to the plaintiff. This was the direct cause of the dissolution of the engagement. Exhibit 8. Screenshot of WeChat chat records, Maria's message when sending the video to the plaintiff, George. Willow said this is a necessary ritual for saying goodbye to singlehood, proving the intent and context behind the sending of the video. Exhibit 9. Cancellation confirmation letter from the wedding hotel. Screenshot of the WeChat group, Dear Friends and Family, Wedding Preparation. Chat records, showing the plaintiff's announcement of the wedding cancellation, proving the fact that the engagement was dissolved due to the defendant's actions. Exhibit 10. WeChat chat records, for nearly 1 year, and phone call records for the last 6 months between the plaintiff and the defendant, proving that the two had not been living together and that the marriage property was only occasionally used by the defendant for overnight stays, not constituting a substantial shared living arrangement. Each piece of evidence that Luis presented was accompanied by a clear explanation of its purpose, especially when the video was played publicly in the solemn courtroom. Suppressed gasps and whispers arose from the gallery. Willow kept her head bowed, her nails digging deeply into the palms of her hands, her body trembling like a leaf in the wind. The overwhelming sense of shame and fear almost tore her apart. She felt as though everyone's gaze was like needles, piercing into her. It was now the defendant's turn to cross-examine. Willow's lawyer seemed somewhat lacking in confidence. Why, yes. We have no objections to the authenticity of evidence 1 to 6, but there are objections regarding relevance and the purpose of proof, as some items were gifts. As for evidence 7 and 8, we have no objections to their authenticity, but we object to their legality. This is secretly recorded footage. It's an invasion of privacy, and it cannot prove the defendant's malicious intent. We have no objections to the authenticity of evidence 9 and 10. The cross-examination proceeded in a suffocating atmosphere. Willow's lawyer tried to emphasize the game nature, drunken unconsciousness, and gift nature of the items, but in the face of the complete chain of evidence presented by Luis, his arguments seemed weak and ineffective. The court will now proceed with closing arguments, the presiding judge said. Luis stood again, his tone steady and forceful. Your Honor, members of the court, the facts in this case are clear, and the evidence is irrefutable. The defendant's serious misconduct on the night before the wedding, proven by video evidence, was a direct violation of public morals and decency. It caused irreparable emotional harm to the plaintiff, the fiancée, and was the direct and sole cause of the dissolution of the engagement. The plaintiff, in the purpose of marriage, provided the defendant and her family with substantial assets. After the engagement was dissolved due to the defendant's fault, the defendant's continued possession of these assets has no legal basis and is clearly unfair. According to relevant judicial interpretations, these assets should be fully returned. The defendant's defense based on game, drunkenness, and other reasons cannot change the inherently immoral nature of her actions or the consequences. Regarding the diamond ring and other items, their value is enormous, far beyond the scope of ordinary gifts in a relationship. And given the timing, close to the wedding date, and the occasion, the proposal, they were clearly conditional gifts for marriage and should be recognized as part of the bride price. The costs of adding the defendant's name to the property were directly incurred due to the engagement. Therefore, the plaintiff's claim is legally sound and justifiable. I respectfully request the court to fully support the plaintiff's request. Willow's lawyer argued, Your Honor, even if the defendant's behavior was inappropriate, it does not fall under the legal circumstances that require the return of the bride price. The return of the bride price should take into account the fault of both parties, the situation of their cohabitation, and the consumption of assets. The defendant has already made substantial contributions to the wedding. Some items have been used or are non-returnable, and the plaintiff acted impulsively in canceling the wedding, which also carries some responsibility. We request the court to consider a partial return or no return at all. The court debate was intense but brief. Luis's arguments were clear, structured, and firmly rooted in law and evidence, while Willow's lawyer's defense, in the face of the undeniable facts and my cold resolve, appeared hollow and weak. Do both parties agree to mediation? The presiding judge asked as a routine inquiry. I do not agree to mediation. My voice was the first to be heard in the courtroom, low, calm, yet carrying an unmistakable finality that echoed clearly through the silence. I didn't even glance at the defendant's seat. Willow suddenly raised her head, looking at George. The side of his face, once so familiar and full of warmth, now only showed coldness and indifference, pushing her away as if she were a stranger. His refusal of mediation shattered the last flicker of hope in her heart. The defendant agrees to mediation, Willow's lawyer quickly said, his voice tinged with a hint of desperation. Given that the plaintiff has clearly rejected mediation, this court will not proceed with mediation. The presiding judge struck the gavel. The court will now adjourn for deliberation. The judgment will be delivered in 15 minutes. The gavel fell, sounding like it struck Willow's nerves. She slumped into her chair, completely drained, cold sweat soaking her back. 15 minutes felt as long as 15 centuries. She watched George calmly leave the courtroom with Luis, not once giving her a single glance. Chapter 9. 15 minutes passed in dead silence. Court is now in session. The presiding judge and the panel of judges returned to their seats. The gavel struck, marking the arrival of the final moment. The atmosphere in the courtroom seemed to freeze. Willow's heart pounded like a drum, almost bursting from her chest. Her parents, seated in the gallery, clutched their hands tightly, their faces ashen. The presiding judge picked up the judgment and read aloud in a loud and clear voice. People's Court of XX District, XX City, Civil Judgment, XXXX, XX Civil Initial XXXX, Plaintiff, George, Defendant, Willow. This court publicly tried this case on date, and the trial has now concluded. Upon review, the court finds the plaintiff, George, and the defendant, Willow, were originally in a romantic relationship and had planned to marry on date. To formalize the marriage, the plaintiff and his parents paid the defendant and her parents an engagement cash gift of 288,000 renminbi, and purchased gold jewelry, valued at 86,500 renminbi, a diamond ring, valued at 158,000 renminbi, and other items for the defendant. The plaintiff also added the defendant as a co-owner of their marriage property, paid related tax fees of 65,200 renminbi, and covered wedding preparation costs, including hotel and wedding company fees, totaling 105,300 renminbi. Additionally, the plaintiff purchased luxury handbags and watches for the defendant during their relationship, valued at 60,000 renminbi. On the early morning of date, the defendant engaged in inappropriate behavior at her bachelorette party, including flirtatious actions and suggestive speech. Video evidence exists. This behavior occurred the night before the wedding and was clearly contrary to public morals. Upon learning of this, the plaintiff cancelled the wedding that same night. The engagement was thus dissolved. The facts are supported by statements from the parties, bank transfer receipts, shopping invoices, tax payment receipts, contracts, video footage, WeChat chat records, and other evidence, all of which are sufficient to confirm the above. The court holds that in a marriage property dispute, the payment of a bride price is with the ultimate goal of marriage. In this case, the plaintiff paid a substantial sum to the defendant with the intention of marriage. Since the engagement has been dissolved, the defendant's continued possession of the aforementioned assets lacks legal basis. Regarding the cause of the engagement's dissolution, the defendant's serious misconduct on the night before the wedding violated the moral obligation of mutual loyalty and respect between partners, went against public morals, and caused emotional harm to the plaintiff. This was the direct cause of the dissolution of the engagement. The defendant argues that it was due to a game or drunkenness, but such reasons do not absolve her actions from their immoral nature and the substantial damage they caused to the engagement. Therefore, the plaintiff's decision to cancel the wedding was not improper. Regarding the scope of the return, the plaintiff requests the return of the cash of 288,000 renminbi, the gold jewelry worth 86,500 renminbi, the diamond ring worth 158,000 renminbi, the tax fees for adding the defendant to the property worth 65,200 renminbi, and the wedding preparation costs of 105,300 renminbi. All of these payments were made with the intent to marry and are considered part of the bride price, and therefore should be returned. As for the luxury handbag and watch, valued at 60,000 renminbi, their value far exceeds the typical gifts exchanged during a relationship. Given the timing of the purchase, the value, and the purpose, they should also be considered conditional gifts for marriage and should be returned. The defendants claim that some of these items were gifts or have been consumed lacks sufficient evidence and is not accepted by the court. In conclusion, the judgment is as follows. The presiding judge's voice rose sharply, carrying the weight of the law. Defendant Willow is ordered to return the bride price in the total amount of 780,000 renminbi, 780,000 yuan, to the plaintiff, George, within 15 days from the effective date of this judgment. The case acceptance fee of XX yuan shall be borne by the defendant, Willow. If you disagree with this judgment, you may appeal to the XX City Intermediate People's Court within 15 days from the delivery of the judgment. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell with a crisp and cold echo. No. Willow's mother let out a heartbreaking cry from the gallery and collapsed. Pablo scrambled to support his wife, tears streaming down his face. His eyes, filled with despair and resentment, turned toward his daughter. Willow sat dumbfounded in the defendant's seat, like a statue drained of its soul. Every word on the judgment seemed like a red-hot iron, burning painfully into her consciousness. 780,000 yuan, within 15 days, returned to the plaintiff, George. She had lost, utterly, completely, the law, in the coldest and most just manner, had put an end to my revenge. She stumbled out of the courtroom, the blinding sunlight making her dizzy. As soon as she stepped down the courthouse stairs, she saw me and Luis standing by the car nearby, seemingly waiting for her. I finally looked at her. My gaze was calm, emotionless, as deep and cold as a frozen well. There was no hatred, no anger, only a complete, icy indifference. It was as if I were looking at a complete stranger. Willow, as if clutching at the last straw, staggered toward me, her tears bursting forth. Her voice was hoarse and broken. George, please listen to me. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I was drunk that night. It was them who forced me. It was Maria. She took the video and sent it to you. I never meant to betray you. I love you. Please, for the sake of the 5 years we've spent together, that money, my family really can't come up with it. Please, show mercy. Spare us. She reached out her hand, as if trying to grab my sleeve, just like she had done countless times before when she was trying to act spoiled. Just before her fingers touched my sleeve, I subtly shifted to the side, avoiding her. The movement was natural, but it carried a piercing distance. Ms. Lou. My voice was calm and unwavering, clearly reaching both Willow and her parents who had followed her. You have received the judgment. I raised my hand slightly, and Luis immediately took out a prepared payment notice from his briefcase, stamped with the bank's seal, and handed it to Willow. This is the payment notice for the court-designated account, Luis said in his professional tone. Please, Ms. Lou, make sure to deposit the full amount of 780,000 yuan into this account within 15 days of the judgment's effective date. If payment is not made by the deadline, we will apply for compulsory enforcement, which may result in the seizure, freezing, or confiscation of assets equivalent to the value of the debt, including any assets held by the defendant or her guarantor, and may affect her credit. Please be aware. Willow stared at the cold payment notice, the figure 780,000 00 staring back at her like the eyes of a demon, glaring down at her. Her last plea, in the face of my cold gaze and Luis's formulaic delivery, seemed so pathetic and pale. George, do you really hate me this much? Willow's voice trembled uncontrollably, carrying the last shred of unwillingness and despair. For a game, you ruined my wedding, destroyed my best friend, and now you want to kill my entire family. Is it really worth it? My gaze finally rested on her face for a moment. There was no hatred in my eyes, only an icy, knowing clarity, as if I had already seen through all her pretenses and excuses. I clearly uttered a single word, my voice not loud, but as sharp as a blade coated in ice, severing all of Willow's hopes in an instant. Worth it. With that, I no longer looked at Willow or the pale faces of her parents. I turned, opened the car door, and sat inside. The black sedan started smoothly, merging into the flow of traffic, quickly disappearing around the corner without a trace of hesitation. Willow stood frozen in place, her hand tightly gripping the payment notice, as if it were a burning hot iron. The blinding sunlight shone on her pale, despairing face. The solemn court doors loomed behind her, like a huge, cold mouth. The world around her seemed to lose its sound, with only the cold 78,000 yuan on the judgment and George's final word ringing wildly in her mind. Worth it, worth it, worth it. She finally understood. The disaster, ignited by her own indulgence and stupidity, had ultimately destroyed only herself and everything she had. George's revenge had been precise, thorough, and merciless. From the moment the wedding was cancelled, the outcome had already been sealed, and now, she had nothing left, except for the burden of 780,000 yuan in debt and a life in ruins. The dust had finally settled, but this dust weighed more than 1,000 pounds, enough to bury her and her fragile family completely.